Welcome to Smart Listening Lab, a YouTube channel for learning English through podcasts. This is a deep dive. Today, we're looking closely at a stack of sources that talk about something absolutely fundamental. It's often called the invisible backbone of society, mental health. Our goal here is really to explore this material, pull out the most important nuggets of insight, and help you quickly get well-informed on this truly crucial topic.
And it really is fundamental. As these sources highlight, mental health shapes so much your emotional state, how you think, your behaviors. It affects everyone, everywhere, all the time. It's not just about understanding illness. It's really about our overall function, resilience, and, well, our ability to actually flourish in life.
Okay, let's start unpacking this then. According to these sources, why is mental health so critically important? It feels like it must go way beyond just, feeling good on a particular day, right?
Absolutely. The sources really emphasize that its importance is multi-layered. It starts at the individual level. So when your mental health is strong, your performance, your productivity, they tend to significantly improve. And this isn't just about work or school, it's in personal pursuits too. You're generally more focused, you find you have better motivation, you're just more effective in whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Right, that makes sense.
Then there's the impact it has on relationships. Good mental health equips you to manage your emotions more effectively. And that translates directly into, well, better communication, a greater capacity for empathy towards others.
Empathy, yeah.
And the ability to build and maintain stronger, healthier connections with the people around you. And for your own personal fulfillment, it's directly linked. Mental health supports a stronger sense of purpose in life, it improves your self-worth, and contributes significantly to your overall life satisfaction. I mean, it's hard to feel truly fulfilled if you're constantly struggling internally, isn't it?
Right.
But the sources don't stop there. They actually scale this importance right up to the societal level. When you have a population with better overall mental well-being, it fosters a more compassionate society, a more resilient one, and ultimately a more cooperative one. It strengthens the whole social fabric.
Wow, okay. That connection between individual well-being and societal cooperation is really interesting. You don't always think of it in those broader terms, that your personal mental state actually contributes to the collective strength, the empathy of your community, makes it feel more like a shared responsibility.
It really is interconnected in ways we often don't fully grasp. And that leads us straight into the next crucial question the source material addresses. If mental health is so fundamental, so impactful on individuals and society, why isn't it treated with the same urgency, the same seriousness as physical health?
Right. And the sources lay out several clear, often quite challenging reasons for this. It really highlights the social barriers we're up against. Let's maybe start with the social side. That seems like a huge hurdle.
It really is. Probably the biggest barrier the source identifies, and it comes up again and again, is stigma. And these pervasive social perceptions. In many cultures, mental illness is still incorrectly seen as a sign of personal weakness, sometimes even linked to, spiritual failings, something that brings shame.
Shame, yeah.
The sources also point out how gender norms play a role here. There's a particular emphasis on how men, often because of traditional expectations, might be really discouraged from showing vulnerability, from expressing emotional difficulties openly, so that leads to suppression, doesn't it, rather than seeking help? And underpinning all of this is a very real fear of repercussions. People hide their struggles because they genuinely worry about the consequences, losing their job, maybe being isolated by friends or family, or just being labeled as unstable or unreliable. That fear keeps people silent.
And beyond those social perceptions and fears, the sources also talk about just a basic lack of awareness contributing to the problem.
Exactly. People frequently misinterpret the symptoms they're experiencing or maybe seeing in others. For instance, the source notes someone might be experiencing chronic fatigue or persistent irritability, difficulty concentrating. And they just dismiss it. They think, oh, I'm just stressed from work or I'm burning out.
Right, they rationalize it.
They don't realize these could actually be significant indicators of depression or maybe an anxiety disorder. There can also be significant generational gaps in understanding. Older generations might have grown up when mental health just wasn't discussed or was heavily stigmatized, so they might dismiss very real symptoms in themselves or others as just being normal parts of aging or personality, rather than recognizing them as treatable conditions.
That makes sense.
Then there's access to healthcare. This is another massive barrier highlighted in the sources, often insurmountable for many. Economically, mental health services, therapy, medication, consultations, they can be incredibly expensive.
Yeah, the cost.
And even where insurance exists, the coverage for mental health is often far less comprehensive than for physical health issues. That disparity is huge. Compounding this are geographical disparities. The sources describe how clinics and trained professionals are often concentrated in urban areas. This leaves huge rural populations underserved or sometimes completely without local options.
So even if you want help, you might not be able to find it nearby.
Precisely. And even in areas where resources do technically exist, the source points out the major problem of long wait times. People in crisis or urgently needing help can face waits of weeks, sometimes even months to get an appointment, even in some developed regions. This delay can be absolutely devastating.
And here's something that gets really interesting and probably hits close to home for a lot of people listening. The sources talk about what they call misplaced priorities. Think about it. Someone might repeatedly go to the doctor complaining about headaches, stomach issues, insomnia, physical symptoms, right? And doctors might treat those specific symptoms. But the underlying stress or anxiety or depression that's causing them gets completely missed or ignored.
That happens all the time.
And on a larger scale, public policy and funding often reflect this same bias. Governments, institutions, they frequently allocate significantly more money, infrastructure, research funding toward physical health issues, which leaves mental health resources perpetually underfunded, struggling to meet the actual demand. Does that resonate with you? Thinking about how we often prioritize those visible physical symptoms over the less visible emotional or psychological ones.
It's a crucial disparity, absolutely, and the sources really expose it effectively. Now, shifting from why it's overlooked to what to look for when someone might be struggling, the sources give us a valuable guide. They help identify potential issues. So what are some of the common signs we should be aware of across different areas of a person's life?
Yes, the source breaks this down quite clearly into different categories, which is helpful. It makes it clearer to recognize the different ways issues can show up. It's not just one type of sign, is it?
No, not at all. So on the psychological side, the sources mention things like persistent feelings of guilt or worthlessness that just don't seem to lift. They also note a heightened sensitivity to rejection or perceived failure, where someone takes things much more personally than might be typical for them. And in more severe cases, there can even be a detachment from reality, like experiencing delusions or hallucinations.
Okay. And behaviorally?
Behaviorally, the signs can be quite varied. The source points to repetitive or compulsive behaviors, things like hair pulling, maybe skin picking, excessive hand washing, often driven by anxiety. There's also what they call escapist behavior, using things like, excessive internet browsing, nonstop gaming, or even binge watching shows for hours and hours.
Binge watching, really?
Yes, as a way to avoid dealing with difficult feelings or reality. And critically, self-harming behavior or persistent suicidal thoughts, these are urgent signs that require immediate attention, always.
Okay. What about thinking patterns? Cognitive signs.
Cognitively, look for patterns like black and white thinking, where everything is seen as either all good or all bad, with no room for nuance, no middle ground. Paranoia or extreme distrust of others without a clear reason is another potential sign. And there can also be a noticeable reduction in someone's capacity for logical reasoning, for planning, or problem solving effectively.
And you mentioned physical signs earlier, too, the ones that often get ignored.
Yes, and this is really important. The sources highlight physical signs often dismissed or not linked to mental health. These include chronic pain, back pain, headaches, muscle aches that doctors can't find a clear medical cause for. Also, sudden or unexplained weight change, either significant loss or gain, and a notable loss of libido or interest in physical intimacy. These physical symptoms can very often be the body's way of signaling psychological distress.
Right.
And the source repeatedly stresses this point. Early detection is key. Intervening early can significantly improve outcomes and prevent issues from escalating further.
Wow, so even something like chronic back pain or those persistent headaches, they could potentially be a physical manifestation of mental distress. That's genuinely surprising. I think many people probably miss that connection. And the idea that excessive binge watching, something so common these days, could be highlighted as an escapist behavior tied to underlying issues, well, it really does make you rethink some everyday habits, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It just underscores why recognizing these signs, even the less obvious ones, is so incredibly important.
Exactly. And the impact is far broader, far deeper than many people realize. When these signs are missed or maybe ignored, the sources clearly show how the consequences ripple outwards. They affect not just the individual's immediate state, but their long-term personality development, and they contribute to significant broader societal problems.
So how does it affect personality development according to the sources?
Well, looking at personality development, poor mental health, especially during formative years, can lead to things like insecure attachment styles. This makes it difficult to form healthy, secure bonds with others later in life. Someone might become overly clingy, perhaps very anxious in relationships, or constantly fearful of abandonment.
Okay.
It often results in poor self-regulation. That means individuals struggle to manage their emotions effectively. This could lead to unpredictable emotional outbursts, maybe a kind of passive numbness, or just real difficulty coping with everyday stress.
And socially.
In terms of social interaction, people might develop significant trust issues, particularly if their struggles stem from trauma or heightened anxiety. It can also severely impair conflict resolution skills. Disagreements become overwhelming, leading either to avoidance or sometimes explosive reactions, which tends to isolate them further. Cognitively and even morally sometimes, mental health issues can create a distorted perception of reality. Depression, for instance, often fuels relentless negative self-talk, right? A pervasive sense of hopelessness that colors how someone sees the entire world and their place in it. The source even notes that some conditions can actually reduce a person's empathy towards others.
Really?
And for adolescents, a really critical period of identity formation, unresolved mental health issues can be particularly disruptive. The source notes they might adopt false personas, maybe online or in social groups, engage in risky behaviors as they experiment with who they are, or struggle intensely with imposter syndrome, feeling like a fraud despite their accomplishments.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It is. And when we widen the lens to look at the broader societal problems fueled by poor mental health, well, the picture is stark. And it impacts everyone.
How so?
In education and careers, for example, you see higher dropout rates among students struggling with anxiety or depression. In adults, it often manifests as burnout, frequent absenteeism from work, reduced productivity, all contributing to significant economic loss.
Okay.
There's also a very strong, well-documented link between mental distress and physical health issues. The sources point out how psychological problems often show up as psychosomatic disorders, real physical symptoms like irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, ulcers, chronic migraines. They don't have a clear physical cause, but are linked to stress and anxiety.
Right, the mind-body connection.
Exactly. And poor mental health can also contribute to lifestyle diseases because someone struggling might become inactive, make poor dietary choices, maybe engage in smoking or substance use as a coping mechanism. Relationships suffer profoundly too. Issues like emotional dependence, perhaps enabling toxic dynamics or complete withdrawal, can make healthy connections incredibly challenging without some kind of intervention.
And the bigger picture, the societal costs.
And then there are the staggering societal and economic costs. What's fascinating here, and quite sobering actually, is the sheer scale. The source cites a World Health Organization estimate suggesting that depression and anxiety disorders alone cost the global economy an estimated $1 trillion per year, just from lost productivity.
$1 trillion. Wow.
It's huge. And you also see the human cost reflected in higher suicide rates and the disproportionate number of people experiencing homelessness or who end up incarcerated. Often these individuals have untreated mental health conditions that were never properly addressed.
So what does this all really mean then? It seems abundantly clear from these sources that this isn't just some personal battle happening in isolation. It's something that ripples outwards, impacting nearly every facet of our lives, our relationships, our economy, our society as a whole. Understanding that interconnectedness feels, well, profoundly important. Okay, let's shift gears a bit now, because the sources aren't just about highlighting the problems, thankfully. They also offer pathways forward. They suggest concrete actions that can be taken to improve and support mental health at different levels. So what are some of the strategies the sources suggest?
Well, the source material outlines a multi-pronged approach, which is encouraging. It ranges from what individuals can do for themselves right up to the systemic changes needed in society. On an individual level, simple, accessible things are recommended. Regular physical exercise, for example. It's consistently shown to boost mood by increasing endorphins, reducing symptoms of anxiety and depression.
Yeah, exercise is always good.
Definitely. Practicing mindfulness and meditation are also suggested as tools. They can help individuals regulate their emotions more effectively, improve focus, improve presence. Even expressive writing, like journaling, can be a surprisingly powerful tool for increasing self-awareness, processing difficult emotions, and gaining clarity on internal struggles.
Okay, so those are things people can do themselves. What about schools or workplaces?
Looking at environments like schools and workplaces, the sources strongly advocate for creating more supportive structures. Things like implementing policies for mental health days. This helps normalize taking necessary time off for emotional recovery, treating it with the same validity as taking a sick day for a physical illness.
That seems crucial.
It is, and providing accessible on-site counseling services, or perhaps facilitating peer support groups within these settings that can create immediate access to help and really reduce that feeling of isolation many people experience.
And then zooming out, what about society as a whole?
At the societal level, there's a strong call for much broader action. This includes things like widespread public awareness campaigns, campaigns designed to destigmatize mental health issues, normalize seeking therapy or using medication if needed, and just encourage more open conversations about it all.
Breaking the silence.
Exactly. The sources also emphasize the need for training, equipping first responders, teachers, community leaders, even the general public, to be able to spot signs of distress and know how to offer initial support or at least direct people to the right resources. And finally, significant policy reform is seen as absolutely crucial. To increase funding for mental health care infrastructure, ensure equitable insurance coverage that's comparable to physical health coverage, and establish stronger legal protections for individuals with mental health conditions.
So it really seems like the source is making it very clear that there isn't one single magic bullet solution here. It's saying we all have a pretty significant role to play, doesn't it? From the small, personal habits we cultivate, right up to the much bigger systemic changes we need to advocate for in society. It truly is a layered challenge, requiring a layered response. We've certainly covered a lot of ground exploring these sources today. We've looked into why mental health is so fundamentally important, the significant barriers that often cause it to be overlooked, the varied signs we should perhaps learn to recognize, the wide-ranging impact it has on individuals and society, and, importantly, the different ways we can support and improve it. Our aim, really, was to help you quickly get a well-rounded perspective on this vital topic.
And the core message, synthesized from the source's final thoughts, is undeniably powerful, I think. In our increasingly complex, hyper-connected, often information-saturated world, establishing and maintaining robust mental health systems and fostering individual well-being, well, they're more critically necessary than ever before. The source leaves us with this concluding thought, which feels like a call to action, really. Ignoring mental health doesn't just harm individuals, it weakens families, workplaces, and entire communities. Making mental health a priority is not just a personal choice, it's a societal responsibility.
Something to think about.
Thanks for tuning in. Keep practicing, and for more English lessons, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.